Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Third Space Podcast, episode number 64, How Limitation Breeds Creativity. In this episode, we start off with kind of a silly little investigation of death. How many people in the United States die from a variety of things. Some of them small things, some of them big things. I tried to see if Daniel can guess which one is higher and what the numbers are, and it is a little entertaining and a little informative. I actually was quite surprised by some of the comparisons when I was looking them up. After that, we start talking about creativity. And let me tell you something in this introduction. There's a study done where there were two groups of kids, school children, and one group, they went to recess on a playground with no fence, and the other group went to recess on a playground with a fence. And in the group with no fence, all of the children stayed huddled around the teacher. They played only nearby to where the teacher was. And in the playground with the fence, they spread out and explored to the boundaries of the playground and didn't stay near the teacher. And I think that study has been replicated a bunch of times. And so, well, that goes along with the thought that I had that creativity may actually be increased by the imposition of limitations, which is kind of a paradoxical thought. You would think that freedom is what causes more creativity. So that's the idea that we play with. We talk about a bunch of examples and potential reasons for why this might be. I thought it was interesting, obviously, because I suggested the topic, but hopefully you will find it interesting as well. So we will kick it off. Take it away, AI jingle.
Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast, Third Space Podcast.
Bennett.
Hello?
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Do you think it's a power play for me to say welcome, like
it's your podcast?
Yeah. Once I've welcomed you.
Well, I didn't know if you were talking to me or to, the audience.
Oh, that's true. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
Third
Podcast
spacers.
Listeners. Third spacers.
Third
That's good.
spacey people.
Third spacies.
Third spacists.
The spacists. Oh, those are people who don't like our podcast.
Yeah, they really hate the Third Space podcast. Bunch of spacists.
A bunch of spacists out there. I like that term.
They really hate space.
I want to start off
Dimensions
with.
anyway.
I want to start with something kind of, I guess, kind of silly. I observed someone complaining about spiders recently and how dangerous they were, and I thought
Pretty common complaint, I imagine.
And I was thinking, are spiders really that dangerous?
They're hated.
They are definitely hated, but are they dangerous? And so I was curious how many deaths per year, were caused by spiders in the United States, and this led me down a trail of looking at what lots of
spider
deaths.
hole.
Well, a spider hole, as they call it.
Went down the old spider hole.
All those rabbit webs extending off in every direction. And I started looking at what people die from in the United States. And so I just have a handful of binary choices between which is higher, this death from this or death from that.
Ooh, I like it.
I want you to try to guess which is higher. It's just a few, so it won't take long at all.
Okay.
So
I like this though.
What do you think kills more people in the United States per year, spiders or ladders?
I'll reason through. I'm gonna say my instinct is it's funny where my instincts fall, because it falls to ladders just because it's a provocative question, and you want to think, of course, spiders are this. More people fear spiders. I don't know many ladder fear. People don't want to be on a ladder, but they do fall off a ladder, and legitimately, almost certainly more injuries are from ladders. I mean, some real paralyzing stuff. I'm sure it's real nasty, and so. the question, I guess, I'm gonna go with ladders, and should I start guessing numbers as well?
Sure,
Like,
yeah, go for it.
Because that's where it's gonna get funny. Because
give me
I don't
your
know.
ballpark. Give me your ballpark.
How
for
many
both.
Americans are? Is this American deaths or world deaths?
U.S. In the U.S.
Okay, so what is the American population like? 350 million, 360, 320, 300.
Yeah, I think we're around 340.
Hey Google,
now.
what's the American population?
In 2021, the population of the United States of America was 331,893,745.
Oh wow,
Okay,
that's really
so-
specific. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
330 million. Okay, so how many
I
are
heard
dying
that.
off of?
I was spying on Google, spying on you. So
I'm gonna say that there's like wow, God, we're in a developed country and you get bit by a spider and stuff starts to go wrong. It's not like a snake where your just heart stops pretty quickly in really bad scenarios. But there are, black widows, and that's what to me the number one scary spider is, the black widow. And so I'm gonna go with like 85 deaths of spiders, and I'm
Okay.
gonna go with 180 ladder deaths. And this is just so I don't know, but there you go. Those are my numbers.
all right, those are not bad.
Infinitesimal, like so small.
Yeah,
by
those
the way.
those are not bad guesses. Annual deaths from spiders, on average 6,
Oh man.
and ladders 161. So you're actually
Oh.
quite close on that one. Good job. All right, so
Well, I like that. Okay, that helps ground me too, because it's like, okay, we have part of it's like medicinally, we're treating spider bites and doing things about it. And like you fall off a ladder and hit your head, it's like sucks for you, man. But like,
yeah.
not much we can do.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I was a little shocked at that number, 6 from spiders, because, yeah, you always hear, as a kid, black widows, brown recluses, and
Well, like
spiders are
ticks, I wonder if
scary.
tick deaths are more than that, Like that's
Could
where
be.
my mind goes, because ticks don't seem as, people don't talk about their fear of ticks, but you hear about, what's the stuff you hear about? The
Lyme disease. And
Lyme
so on.
disease and like bad stuff. So
Right.
they might kill more than spiders. So
Yeah.
6 is so small. It does surprise me. And I was trying to give you a realistic answer, and I knew even just saying 80, I was truly going really small. We're talking about people die of all sorts of wacky
Okay.
things. Like 6 has got to be like one of the lower like death statistics out there. There's only 5 others that could beat it out,
Right,
Like,
yeah, right.
Anyway.
All right, so what do you think kills more people in the U.S. per year, fire or water?
I would guess water, because fire is violent. So you kind of go, well, fires kill people, but drownings and stuff, give me a break. Like people, like their water is you can't drown in like a very small amount of water. I don't know what the minimum amount is, but it's something goofy like a teaspoon will kill you. Like I don't know, that's obviously not true. But whereas fire is this violent but more rare. So definitely going water, and then I'll try and throw numbers out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with like 200 drowning and like 50 for fire.
You're way off on this one.
Okay.
Fire kills 4,300 people per year
Yikes.
in the
Okay.
U.S.
Well, I
And-
just need to recalibrate.
And
Jeez.
water that is drowning kills 2,100 people.
Oh, I wasn't even
less,
right.
Less than half. Now, fire, I got this from some kind of fire agency. Not finding these stats is, well, a journey on its own. So take every single stat with a grain of salt, because you can't trust any statistics, basically. But the fire is from, well, residential fires, non-residential fires, auto fires, that kind of thing. Smoke inhalation from fire.
I was about to say, do you get knocked out? Because I've always, this is going to sound really insensitive, and I don't want to sound, I've always thought like, unless all of a sudden the building's ablaze and you're in a skyscraper, just kind of like leave. I mean, and I know that that's not that simple. I know I'm missing puzzle pieces. Like, are they dying in their sleep of smoke inhalation, or they pass out and then they get burned to death, or it collapses and knocks them out and then they die by fire? Does not part of you feel that way? It's like, okay, you just run through, because we can, like, a flame can kiss your body and you're not dead. And if there's a fiery doorway and you're like, oh, it's blocked, like, if that's your only option, you just kind of get burned, but you keep on running and you get out of there. So I think I'm underestimating a couple of things, and that's got to be the smoke must be just like, I don't know. I was also just think, hold your breath. I know it's not that simple though. So talk me through it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think that in most cases people do just leave. And yeah, if it's smoky but not so fiery and smoky that all the oxygen is being stolen, then yeah, they just they cough and choke on the smoke and ash and leave. But if like you're not aware that the fire begins and you're in some interior room of a building,
which I assume is all cases almost,
and the exterior buildings or exterior rooms rather catch on fire, and then you have to go through, you have to hold your breath while you're panicking and physically exerting yourself, and maybe the oxygen is depleted because of the fire and smoke, like,
and you're breathing fast.
Yeah, you're gonna lose your energy pretty quickly, right? It's not like you're gonna. Let's imagine you are in a multi-story office building. You can't jump out the window, because you would die or be seriously injured. So you got to go down the stairwell, and it's smoky. I don't know. I could just see people running out of breath and collapsing.
Fair. So what are your thoughts of like wildfires that are in the news and then continue to kill people? Are you sort of like,
wildfires?
Look, guys, like,
I don't think are as big a deal for humans.
But they start to catch, like, they come up to like a suburban neighborhood, and then like,
yeah, but
I guess by that point they're evacuated, right?
Yeah,
There's
they're
almost
evacuated.
no deaths from those moments.
That is the thing where, okay, we'll just leave. Now, right now, as we do this podcast, there's been major fires in Hawaii.
Maui.
Yeah,
like bad stuff. That's why I'm not actually making fun of people. Yeah, people, a lot of like, isn't it like 100 or something?
Yeah,
maybe
I think it is now.
I think I said 80 when I knew the number. I heard on the radio today. Really stupid of me.
Well,
I don't mean to laugh at. I just laughed at their death. I'm not laughing at their death. I'm laughing at my stupid.
Gosh, you're just the worst.
No,
I think it's probably, you can imagine elderly people not able to flee their homes quickly enough. Maybe, like I don't actually know what the cause.
I guess I know. I said it in a provocative way. I said, like, why are they dying? Why not just walk out? I know that, there's got to be these legitimate reasons, and it sucks, and it's terrible. It's a tragedy, and it's old people, it's vulnerable people, it's asleep people, it's injured people, it's people, like you said, in the middle of bigger structures and not aware until it's too late. I cannot help but when I hear these kind of things, like died in a fire, it's one of the more unique. When I hear someone's died in a car wreck, I don't picture myself dying in a car wreck, but when I hear someone's died in a fire, I kind of have this pretty vivid imagination of being like, it's go time, the building's on fire, I'm there, I'm getting low, I'm trying to wet a shirt and put it around my like mouth and get low and crawl, like if I need to crawl or if I just can stay, and I'm like, I'm ready to like endure some physical pain, and I don't know why I go to that sort of self-challenge the way I don't when I hear about a drowning or a plane crash or something like that. I don't put myself there as much.
Let's move on to the next one. This one is a little different. What do you think kills more people in the U.S. per year? Medical malpractice or car accidents? So these are no longer small ticket items.
Medical malpractice or what?
Car accidents. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going car accidents. I think it's like one of the leading causes of like it's a huge I feel like it's on lists of top reasons for death, particularly outside, I think, of like cancer, heart disease, that sort of thing. The four horsemen, I've heard it called.
Right.
Like, outside of those, I think car accidents is like it. So I just got to put that as there's more of that.
So how many?
Oh God, I don't even know how many people die a year. I wish I had that baseline. And then I don't know if I sound goofy. Do I sound goofy saying, like 50,000? This is where like numbers start to lose me. So I'll say I'll just say 50,000 and 25,000 because I have no idea for insurance or medical malpractice. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
you're gonna be surprised then. Medical malpractice is about 250,000 people. A study from analyzing between the year 2000 and 2008 assessed that about 250,000 people a year die from medical malpractice. And you have to imagine that number has gone up precipitously, especially in recent years. And then,
But we know more science.
That's
So
true. That's true. The science saves people. And car accidents in 2022 was 43,000, so significantly less.
And I guessed 50,000
You guessed
for
50,
car
so
accidents.
your guess was actually really good for car
And I
accidents.
was way off for...
Medical malpractice. Medical malpractice, I saw something that said that it was the third leading cause of death now.
Does this
after
justify
cancer
people's...
and heart disease.
Wow. Does this justify people's death fear of hospitals? Like, are they...
Oh, yeah.
Right to be legitimately scared? Wait, I'm trying to work this through. I want to understand what medical malpractice means, because are they counting...
Yeah, there's a lot that can go into that definition, of course.
Yeah, I'm concerned I wouldn't agree with this broad definition that's trying to... It sounds like it's trying to judge the, healthcare industry and say, okay, because you put them on this med when this med would have been better, but it was still a good med. It didn't screw them up. It didn't kill them, but it would have been better to be on like this slightly better med, and like they ended up dying. We're counting that as malpractice. But does malpractice mean like you have a case in the legal system that is reasonable to win? Like, I just want to know what that means. But
I didn't read the entire study that this came from, like I said, it's from 2000 to 2008. I couldn't find any good source stat from more recent years. Granted, I didn't look all that hard. A lot of stuff I found was from the malpractice, the insurance claims, and that wasn't good enough to me. So, because I don't know. I guess I don't trust that. But these are things like, they made a mistake.
Leaving a scalpel inside you,
that kind of thing. Making a mistake during surgery. I think misdiagnosis and deaths resulting from that is included. Misprescribing a medication. I think all that kind of stuff is included. So, yeah, it's a pretty broad umbrella. But it's not necessarily a death from a natural cause. So
I know
it's still it's a shocking number.
Freaks me out. It's a shocking number that we have this giant medical, system, and it's now ranking third in killing people.
Yeah, right.
That's laughable, right?
Well, you also have to think too that who relies on the healthcare industry the most? Well, it's old people, right?
And unhealthy, I would just generally say.
Well, exactly.
Old people are,
Old people and frail people rely on the medical industry. So even if something slightly goes wrong, that can be the end for them, right? And so the margins are a little bit thinner. Now, that doesn't mean
everyone's going and getting, they're at the end of life, they're doing things aggressively and dying. Yeah. So I'd want to know, under 60 or something like that. Like, what, they take that out of the situation. How much is that contributing? 60 and older, and more aggressive treatments that end up killing people, but they knew the risks. And I don't know. I don't want to dismiss malpractice or whatever. Man, that number is so wild to me. Ugh.
Yeah, I was surprised by the car accident. I expected car accidents to be higher, too.
Yeah, I'm 1 for 3. Is that right? Yeah,
you're good on spiders.
My intuition's off on these. Yeah.
All right. What's the more dangerous animal in the U.S. In terms of deaths, deer or sharks?
I feel pretty good about saying deer in this one. There's just more of them. We talked about hunting recently, talking about overpopulation and causing wrecks. Sharks are better for a movie villain kind of thing, Jaws and whatnot.
I don't know. You didn't think
Name
about
a deer movie. Like,
a deer movie? I mean,
just call it Antlers or whatever the scary.
antlers.
I mean, jaws of a shark, antlers of a deer. And so I'm confident. I'd be very surprised if I were wrong because I feel like we're in the like 12 for sharks, and like if we're counting car wrecks for deer here, I'm gonna put that at like. I mean, it could be like 1,000 or something. So that's what I'm going for, 1,012.
Pretty good on that one. Sharks have only killed 2 people since 2020 in the U.S. So very few deaths from sharks. And deer in 1 year kill about 440 people. Yeah, mostly due to car accidents. So you're dead on. With
outside the car accidents, I just thought it would be, zero almost. Like, what are they like? Are they like charging people? Like, really? Not really. I mean,
probably. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's pretty.
I did hear a story about a car accident. And my mom would tell the story, and I still remember. It's like a kid memory, so treat it as you will. But this deer, after a wreck, the kids, the parents were looking, and the kid. So sorry, I'm telling this terribly. The deer charges at the car, puts their antlers in, or maybe it was hit. This has to be it. Then the antlers were stuck in the windshield, and the kid had braces, and the antlers got all like messed up the kid's face and braces.
What?
And that really horrified me as a kid because it was stuck and trying to get out, and like it was being really aggressive and pounding and like moving its antlers all around, and just sounds like a B movie death, to be honest.
Yeah, really. The kid goes into the orthodontist with his messed up braces, and the orthodontist is like, "What happened to your braces? Did you eat some hard candy, little Johnny?" "No, a deer."
No. Did you know deer kill 440 people a year, or whatever the number was?
It would be a good scene for Antlers, the movie, when the kid goes into the orthodontist, and then, you peek out the window and there's a deer peeking in.
Angrily. I can imagine that. An angry looking deer.
All right. What killed more people in the U.S.? Or, well, did more Americans die in the war in Vietnam or of drug overdoses in 2022?
Oh. This one's interesting because I feel like we want to say... Psychologically, I was like, I'm going to say the overdoses is what I want to say if I'm taking a test. But then I think Bennett knows me by this point. He might be reading where I'm going and change it up. But I'm going to stick with overdoses. I mean, this opioid stuff, I'm not sure how far out of it we are. Also, medical stuff has been surprised. You shocked me with the malpractice stuff, so I'll probably be shocked by drug numbers. And, we live in a good way a sheltered life. Like, that's just not part of what we see on a daily basis. So I'm blind to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if I were shocked. That's it. I wouldn't be surprised if I were shocked. And then I don't know where to place these numbers. I feel like if I were a better history student or student of history, I would know the Vietnam numbers. And I don't. So, let's say 5,000 for Vietnam and 25,000 for drug overdoses in 2022.
Oh, you're way off on this one. Okay. U.S. deaths you're right in which one is higher. U.S. deaths in Vietnam were about 58,000.
Oh, man. I'm
embarrassed. Drug overdoses in 2022, 110,000.
Oh my gosh!
Isn't that ridiculous?
Way off on the numbers. 110,000.
Well, I mean,
and 58,000.
And 58,000 in all of the Vietnam War. I mean, like, well, that just kind of drives home how insane the overdose stuff is. Right now, like, I mean, well, again, like you said, you and I personally, we don't ever see this. I don't see people doing drugs. But
it's represented in our media a lot, Breaking Bad and whatnot. Drug use is very scary and flashy as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what's going on? Don't do drugs. It's that easy. Just it's like a fire.
Dare worked on me.
Me too. If your building's burning, just leave. If you're about to overdose on drugs, just don't. Don't do more.
I want to share a quick dare story that I remember asking Officer What's His Face. I don't know. Everyone had Officer What's His Face.
McCoy.
Yeah. Officer McCoy. So I had this sincere question, and I knew it was spot on, and I was so shocked by his answer, and it reveals my ignorance as a kid. I said, so what do you do if you're not offered drugs, but you're told you have to do it, and they pull out a gun and tell you have to, like, do the drugs? And because that just seems so realistic in my mind.
Right.
Like drug dealers or people with drugs are bad, and they have guns, and they're going to threaten you. And so he said, he acknowledged that. He said, that's a great question, and he repeated it to everyone. And I'm like, good, because seriously, I think I'm going to have to do drugs if that happens, I'm not going to get shot. And he says, statistically, this is absolutely not happening. Like no one ever says, here, you want to hit? No thanks. I said, do it, and like pulls out a gun and makes you do the drugs. It just doesn't happen. And that made me go like, what? He has to be wrong about that. I thought that's what happened day in and day
Why
out.
Why else would anyone do drugs?
Yes, like some bad kids won't do the drugs, but like. I always hear good people like get hooked on drugs too. So like they're obviously started by being forced
into it.
And so when he told me that, I treated it with suspicion, but also trust of like authority. So I was just like, wow, really? Like really? And the idea of that being like a really spot on question is so funny to me. I was like, why hasn't anyone asked this yet? I'll ask it. Fine, I'll be the one to ask the
Everyone's
obvious
thinking
question.
it. Yeah, there are no stupid questions, right? And so you asked it.
Man. Yeah. Dare.
What kills more people in the U.S. per year, alligators or lightning?
Oh, good one. This one's tough to me because I feel like they're both low. I feel like they might even be both maybe single digit low. And I'm gonna go with. Oh, I really don't know. This is a coin toss, so there's no like. I just got lucky if I get it right. I'm gonna say lightning kills more people, and I'm gonna say it kills 9, and alligators kill people less, and it's 5.
Oh man, alligators kill 4 people. 4 in 2022. In 2022, alligators killed 4 people, and lightning on average kills about 28 people. So pretty good.
Okay. All right. 4 and I guess 5. Like that's
as close as you're gonna get.
Yeah.
All right. The last one I've got, accidental falls or non-suicide related deaths from guns.
I've got to tell you, I saw a comedian do a bit once about this, and if he was right, it was accidental falls were a lot higher than what'd you say? Non-accidental
deaths from guns,
death from
not
guns.
just not including suicide.
Not a bias. Oh, not suicide. Okay, yeah. And he did this like funny pantomiming of it and was like, yeah, it's really tragic to think death, but keep in mind so many more. And then he like fake fell and died. It was funny. So I hate to say I know this one, or at least I trust the comedian for no real reason because it was literally on like one of these YouTube reels. But I'm gonna say that that's accurate, and it was something like, well, the numbers I just don't remember, so I'm not even gonna pretend to remember that. So I'd almost prefer to answer in like triple or quadruple or double, but I'll still try and give you numbers.
Okay.
Deaths from falls, if it's higher, which is shocking, by the way. I want to be clear that if I hadn't seen that video, I would still probably answer it because it feels like a leading like question, Deaths from falls. This is old people too. I think they're getting the numbers way up there. I'm gonna say like 400. God, that seems so high, but I'm saying it anyway. Mm-hmm. And then from guns, like 350.
Oh man,
I don't know.
You're way off. Accidental falls in 2017, 36,000.
God, I don't know what I'm talking about. Clearly, that shocks me. 36,000 deaths from falling.
From falling. I mean, think
off
about
ladders or
including ladders. Think about all the old people who, just stumble and break their hip or whatever.
I wish I felt like I I'm tired. Like, that answer was bad. That one I'm embarrassed by. Others, I'm just like, whatever.
Well,
okay, I wasn't a good student of history and some other things, but that one
sure.
was bad.
Yeah, and firearm deaths too. 21,000 for non-suicide.
Yeah, like Chicago killed
a bad
like, somebody
weekend.
yeah,
a bad weekend
It was
in
a bad
Chicago
guess.
is 350.
I just wasn't thinking, right?
Yeah, and that was in 2021, 21,000 non-suicide firearm deaths. But if you include suicide, it's 48,000. So that just shows you how ridiculous that is, right?
Yeah.
But like again, like the reason that surprised me is just because, all right, when you talk about, when you hear what people are afraid of and what gets blown up in the media, it's guns and drugs and war and all of this stuff. But like people falling kills more people than guns do.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
when
no,
people
it's a
talk about
valid point.
lock up your guns from your kids and all of this, which is something you should do. But you should also keep an eye on them when they're going down the stairs, maybe.
This is a stat I want to know, like, again, under 60 or whatever, 65, set whatever age that is reasonable, and then say, like, I mean, death by falling, these are nasty falls unless you're just 85 years old and your hip just kind of, like, maybe you don't even fall because, and break your hip. Maybe your hip just disintegrates and then you fall,
Yeah.
Like, we don't know how many of these numbers are just, they died while standing and we're counting it as a fall.
Sure.
It's a funny thing to say, but like, or just, I'm trying to think of something like someone gets in a car accident, they get out and then they fall and then they're old and they get sent to the emergency room and they prescribe them aspirin and they're allergic, like, and they get booked. Like, where does this death
Right, it was
count?
a COVID death.
It was a COVID death.
Well, I mean, that's
in
the thing.
addition
Like
to falling and an accident and
right. I mean, you're
malpractice.
highlighting that cause of death problem that well, it became a talking point with COVID in particular. But yeah, sometimes it is hard to attribute what specifically killed someone.
I mean, even philosophically, that's you could probably debate. I mean, guns, or maybe even linguistically. I don't want to get. It's silly to be like, well, it wasn't the gun, it was the bullet, and it wasn't the bullet, it was the tearing of the brain matter. I don't like what and at which moment, at which shredding of the brain did death occur? Like what kills us? Like when that's an interesting thought, sort of. At least it is to me. So
yeah, most of the time it doesn't matter.
But is there a sense of does all death involve a sense of overwhelm? Because it's not this one brain synapse that gets disconnected. That's not the death moment. It's like this general overwhelm, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think when you get right down to it, most people die of like suffocation or something. Like their heart gives out and their brain doesn't get oxygen, and that's what kills them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in the case of like a gunshot to the head or something, then
it could still be a brain not communicating to breathe anymore.
Sure.
Well, that's a stupid thing to say. That's not true. Like clearly they're. I don't know. I was like, where, yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, that was my fun small diversion that took us half an hour to get through.
This fun small.
But I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
I liked it. I don't feel like we lingered too long. I did tell a dare story and talk about fire a little bit too much, but I liked it.
So I've got another thing that I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about creativity a little bit lately. So I just want to ask, just right at the top, what makes people creative?
What makes people creative? Their ability to... I actually kind of go to problem solving in unique ways, but I'm expanding problem solving to not like... It's not like you're doing a math problem exactly. It means that you are faced with a goal or a desire, and that can be defined as a problem, right? Like, how do I don't have that goal yet, and I have this desire to get to there, but I'm not there. I can call that a problem. Mm-hmm. And then I want to get there. So there's like I would say it's not creative. A to B, what the most utilitarian path there is not creative. But let's say the reason it is a problem is because A to B is obstructed in some way. Like if it were just simple, I don't need to be creative. I just do that A to B. But now A to B is obstructed, which means the problem's a little more complicated. So in order for creativity to be there, it needs to be a little bit complicated to get the goal or the desired outcome. And then you come up with ways to get there that are unique, novel, insightful, and what I would call creative. Is that fair?
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So, yeah, one of the things I thought about was, well, obviously there's a personality component to creativity. It seems like some people are just naturally more creative than others. Even if two people are faced with the same obstacle and the same path, one person may be more creative than the other. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that being faced with obstacles kind of presses us into creativity.
If I said to a non-creative person, all right, list how many things you can do with this blanket, they'd say like to cover yourself with for warmth and to maybe like provide some shelter. And I think they'd run out of ideas really quick. And I think a more creative type of person would rattle off fanciful things that almost get narrative based. You could spiral it into a tightly knit thing and whip people with it who are annoying you, or and you could just it could be a cape, and you could just get it could be a house, and or it can be a flying carpet, and or it could be a shelter to change clothes in when you look down and realize you're naked. I don't know. I just think you'd be more. I don't know if this anyway. It feels like they'd be fanciful and creative and pulling from almost narrative. I don't want to link creativity and narrative, but I just believe that the descriptions would lend themselves to be humorous and fanciful and with some degree of specificity that are just beyond like utilitarian and pragmatic.
What do you think about stress levels? Do you think someone would be more creative in a high stress situation or in a low stress situation?
Oh, this is an interesting question. My knee jerk is to say high stress because, I can see both sides simultaneously. So let's go with low stress. There was a study done that I'm pulling out of my butt right now, but people that were bored before asked to do some sort of task, and meaning their phone was taken away and they literally had nothing to do. They were more creative with whatever it was. They were given something like a paper cup and a phone book and a blanket and said, "Do whatever." They had to solve some problem, I think, which lends credibility to my creative definition of like problem solving. And they were more creative about finding solutions. Whereas the person who was able to be on their phone and just chill out and so, they're both relaxed, I guess. Boredom is like intense relaxation, too much relaxation. And so they were in a creative state. But also if there's some stress, it's out of that. There's incentive, I suppose, or I believe that stress and high stakes coincide. I mean, the stakes are a little higher, so there's reason. There's a real immediacy to this problem, and so I think that you've talked about out of confinement comes creativity. Sometimes, like with like a haiku out of the rules, you can get more creative. So I would guess, I don't know if you actually have an answer to this, but I would guess that stress means it's like immediate and there's something that needs to be done and here are some parameters and go, and it's like, oh my god, and that's going to lead me to be more creative. I don't know, at least there's going to be higher degree of creative output under stressful circumstances. I don't know which is a more ideal situation, but I guarantee some stress is going to create creativity more often because it's just there's a need, like do this, go, versus hey, go be bored. Bored's gonna have long swaths of not creative time, right? So
yeah, I don't have an answer. It wasn't a question with an objective answer. I was just curious what you thought. I was thinking along similar lines. Well, if you're not under stressful circumstances, then you have the luxury of thinking about not just using the blanket for warmth, but also using it as, a trampoline or a thing to catch people jumping out of burning office buildings.
Right.
So that they don't die, become a statistic to be used in a third space podcast, to be criticized by spacists. So
Double call that.
So low stress might allow you the luxury of being more creative, whereas under high stress you might have to take what you can get, right? The first thing that comes to mind. On the other hand, under high stress situations, the first thing that comes to mind might not be good enough. I'm thinking like in wartime. I just watched Oppenheimer a couple weeks ago. And,
Oh, yeah, we haven't talked about it. God, did you love it? I loved it.
I really enjoyed it. Oh, I'm glad you saw it.
We'll talk about that later.
We
But
do need
so
to talk
good.
about that later. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
good.
I'm glad it didn't let me down at all. I just freaking loved it.
I really liked it too. But that's a situation historically where, like that was creativity, and it was creativity due to a high stress situation.
Yeah.
So it could go either way. But all of this lengthy introduction to lead me into my thesis for this topic, which you already uncovered, which is paradoxically, I think that applying limitations increases creativity rather than decreases it. Like normally you would think, okay, freedom, we live in America, we love our freedom, we want as much freedom as we can get. But if you have too much freedom, then that actually stifles you. It makes you unable to think of creative solutions, whereas limiting yourself into some bounded area increases your creativity.
Yeah, we're
What do you
actually
think about that?
happier if we have.
Do you think that's true, first of all?
Well, I'm intrigued and I want to play with the idea, and I tend to think yes is my knee jerk. And I also know that like choice, we want choice, and you could parallel that with freedom. But we actually don't want too much choice. It can be frustrating. So we almost want to experience choice more than we want infinite choice. I know this as a teacher. If I just say write anything you want to about this book we just read, they're just like, well, that's too much. I don't know where to begin. But if I give them 5 prompts and say, if you want a 6th one that's either a mod of these or one you come up with on your own, let me know. And they're much happier with that. There was a study, and I wish I had it in front of me too. I'm going to pull it out of my butt. Suave shampoo used to have like 30 or 40 cents, and they cut their cents to like 8, and their sales went up like 25 or 30%, some huge statistically significant amount.
Yeah.
And the idea was that the shopper goes and they go, and they see the 8 cents and they smell them and they go and they choose their favorite and they feel like they've chosen the best and they like it.
Right.
And whereas if there's 30 or 40 cents, they go, all right, forget about it. And you just kind of feel like, I don't know if I chose the best one. And also there's a quality thing. If there's 40 cents, like this company's just cranking out whatever. Whereas if fancy restaurants have limited menus because they're like, no, we're experts in this 1-page menu, not to say that somewhere like the Cheesecake Factory with their multi-page menu, they're an anomaly, right? They actually have good food on all sorts of different. Their kitchen is really complex, but yeah. So
I'm pretty sure I've heard that shampoo anecdote
example
before. Yeah. So.
And that's about choice, which is not creativity, but it is a limitation
it's about freedom,
that
No, I think it's not creativity exactly, but it does go to the point that too many degrees of freedom is bewildering. We don't know what to do, what to choose. And I think that creativity it's a choice of what actions to take, right? And so if you have if you can generate 1,000 different choices that you can take, it's bewildering. Which one should I pick? I don't know. But if you're limited by whatever framework you're in, then you have fewer choices, and that means you're more able to assess which of those choices will be better.
And that's actually so. And again, to go back to writing and student writing, if I say, all right, we're going to write a short story, or if I said write a short story with subtext, just like these characters in which there was maybe a divorce or an abortion or something like that was the subtext, and they never mention divorce or they don't mention abortion. There's a famous, I think it's a Hemingway short story that's all about that. The hills, white elephant.
Hills have eyes.
hills have white elephants. White hills. I don't know. But the point is, you read the whole short story and they go, what is this about? And you're like, well, it's about abortion. And they're like, what? And then you reread it and you're like, because it doesn't mention that, but all the tension is there and all of this is true, by the way. It's like a 1-pager too. Anyway, so the point is, though, if you give a cool assignment, that it's better to say to kids, all right, write a short story that involves one flashback. The main character has to be an animal, and there's a symbol, something like that. Like, that's so, okay, like, that feels feasible. Okay, I got to pick an animal, all right? What animal am I going to pick? I'm going to pick a parrot, and it's going to repeat things a lot.
Spider.
And it lives in a cage, and the cage is going to be the motif, the symbol, I'm going to pick a spider. And you can just see this, and I'm going to use a flashback to tell its origin story, or why it's in this, exotic pet shop, and why it's sad to be there, or whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm already just spitballing and creating something with you that's better than if you just said, I don't know, if you say, tell me a story, but all right, a guy... it's debilitating. Too much choice is debilitating. Yeah. So in a very real sense, we need the limitations. I mean, in fact, that's the art of teaching, is to provide reasonable limitations and guiding limitations. And that's why we say, that's what they're asking for when they say, is this graded, or how long does this have to be? Mm-hmm. They're wanting to know, well, a lot of things, the value, and grade grubbing is all part of that. But also, it's reasonable to say, like, are you expecting 5 pages or a paragraph? Because clearly that's a significant difference, both in terms of what's required of them and the thought that they're putting into it and the time commitment they're going to make. So they're looking for that.
Poetry is limitation imposed, right? I mean, that's essentially, well, not modern poetry, which they just write prose anyway, but when you think of
they just space it out
good
weirdly.
Poetry, which is AB rhyme scheme
only there's some limitations for you.
That kind of limitation that makes it art, right? That makes it beautiful.
Well, if you study art in school, you don't just hand a canvas every day and say paint something. You study impressionism and cubism and otherisms. And and then you try to mimic it and understand it and study it, and that's why we have labels for time periods, and we try to understand history through. This was the Renaissance, and this was the Romantic era, and it's all like. Interestingly, we define history like retrospectively, and maybe for the first time, like, did modernists, or I guess they knew they were, I guess it come about, like, we know we're in a postmodern and we're struggling to name currently, are we in postmodern or new sincerity, or what, there's different terms out there, but like, we're just trying to make sense. What we're actually craving is some boundaries and limitations to try and understand how we're operating in this world. And so that's a general, like, talking about postmodernism, that's so giant. But then when you get closer, then you get into this discussion, and we call this a podcast. And a podcast has the limitations of it's just a discussion, or a recording between, well, whoever, but in this case, you and me, and we do a podcast. Meaning we're not going to have video, so we don't plan for segments with videos. And out of that, it's like, all right, because I have no doubt if we had video and we had a big old production, I'd be wanting to do things with food or visual elements. But I like that that's off the table, because there's just so much in this world, and particularly in a internet world, like, everything's at our fingertips. It's just like, I'm so inundated with information. Like, I'm hungrier and hungrier for limitations, and I suspect everyone feels the same way.
So would we be better off with fewer freedoms? Should we, like, America is, we love our freedom, and we consider ourselves a free country. So are we wrong? Would we be better off if we had a more authoritarian government, or if we didn't have a constitution, or like, would we be better? Would we be more creative people?
If I think.
Let me ask this: would we have a fewer or greater number of suicides? How do you think that suicide rates with the amount of freedom that people have. Like,
well,
I have-
Japanese
I do
culture
have
seems
some-
to be high.
yeah, I did look.
I was just gonna say they have
I
a
had
higher
this thought,
suicide rate and
so-
they're more restrictive. But there was so much I wanted to unpack with that because I almost
Okay,
want
sure, go ahead.
to go back to, like, I almost feel like as an American, like, freedom is this axiomatic, like, fundamental, foundational thing that, like, from which I operate. So to challenge that, I feel at my core, I'm trying to double check that for this conversation and for the thought experiment of, like, have I placed too much emphasis on freedom? And I'm willing to at least entertain, for the sake of a discussion, like, maybe in my hierarchy of values, I've placed freedom higher than I'm not going to say should, but, like, I'm willing to evaluate it and say, maybe if I had a little bit less freedom, it wouldn't be as upsetting and unearth me as much as I feel even cautious saying it. You can hear I'm struggling even to say it because I value freedom this much. But, like, perhaps I'm perceiving, like, freedom is such a big term too. Like,
Sure.
Like, and are there these reasonable limitations on freedom? That statement alone, I want to say, like, no, as soon as you're limiting freedom, like, freedom collapses completely. It's an all or nothing thing. And that dichotomy of thinking, that it seems a little oversimplistic to me. And so I'd be willing to investigate it. But in a very pure definition sense, if you restrict anything, I no longer am, like, completely free, and I have to pay taxes. So we're like, is this an illusion of a free society anyway? And then to get to your, well, I don't know if we wanted to unpack that and then unpack the suicide thing, but
I mean, it all kind of goes. It goes together a little bit. I mean,
okay, how about this? If we lived in like a authoritarian regime that was cracking down, I would resist, and in that resistance, I'd find a lot of purpose, actually, and probably have some comrades, and I'd be willing to die for the cause. I say comrades; it's probably not a good word, but you know what I mean. Like, like I would push back and, like, feel very, very sincere and right and just, and I would be fighting the good fight. And that is, in terms of feeling fulfilled and purposeful, that'd be amazing. In a completely free society that's completely peaceful, finding purpose is a lot harder.
Right.
And I think we do live in a generally peaceful, our experience is that anyway. And
that's kind of where I was going with this thought. I had the thought, okay, what about in North Korea or Afghanistan or some place where they don't, they obviously don't have the same freedoms that we do. Like, there's some amount of misery that comes along with that. There's oppression and poverty, and why don't people kill themselves?
Injustice in general,
right? Like, you would think that people, we have, I mentioned, I didn't mean to link this, but we have 110,000 drug overdoses a year and however many tens of thousands of gun suicides. That's not including other suicides in the U.S. And life in the U.S. is pretty freaking great. And you would imagine that there would be more deaths in somewhere like North Korea, which is abysmal. But, like, when you look at the stats, per 100,000 people, there are 14 suicides. I think this is from 2012, so it's kind of dated. 14 suicides in the U.S., and North Korea, 9 per 100,000. So lower suicide rate in North Korea.
Well, like, the impact on happiness, like, might not be this what we think it is, and that's a huge
right.
Like,
Well, and Iran and Iraq are at only 5, China at 7, Venezuela
there's also
2.
Are they recording the numbers accurately is another,
Sure.
but still,
sure.
Let's take it at face value though, and say that
Right.
these are.
Japan, which you called out, is about 13, so lower than the U.S.
Oh wow, that throws my concept of things. I just they have like a suicide forest and stuff.
Here's an
I thought.
interesting factoid. Finland, which has come out number 1 in the World Happiness Report, which is granted self-survey data, but for years, it's been rated number 1. their suicide rate is 13 or 14 people, around the same as the U.S. Afghanistan came in last in the World Happiness Report, and like I said, their suicide rate is 6 per 100,000, so less than half. So
I would like to see a fulfillment report, like or a purpose.
Well, I'm sure that
because
gets
even if you're
wrapped up in the whatever the happiness report is.
Well, I think it's important to delineate and say happiness. Well, the reason I say purpose and fulfillment is like, okay, I might be miserable and oppressed but like,
yeah, but
I
understand.
My family
I understand what
and
you're saying. There is an important distinction between happiness, which is fleeting, and purpose, which is long lasting. But I can't imagine, maybe this is just me being naive, but I can't imagine anyone getting some survey saying, are you happy? And they go, oh, you know what? Right now in this moment, I just ate a Snickers bar. I'm pretty happy. So I'm filling it out. Yes. Like, surely people are thinking in broader terms when they answer a survey like that, right?
I'm just saying that perhaps the weird thing is if you're suffering at the hands of others, and that's where like Iraq or something like this, that might be suffering at the hands of the others, but you still have like family to defend and protect. So you might be miserable, but you're miserable by an outside source. But when you're free, you're actually saying there's no outside source causing you pain. But to this sort of, is it true that to live is to suffer? So even if the pain isn't external, then it's gonna be internal. Like, that's a terrible, like, so everyone's mental health in free worlds are like way worse, and they're committing suicide at higher rates. Like, that's so wild to say, but
it is crazy. But like, I mean, that's another thing that I wondered, when thinking about creativity, happiness,
our neuroticism
purpose.
Runs amok, essentially, is what I'm saying.
That's what's
It's
happening. Like Gen Z in particular, and millennials also very high. You have extreme levels of anxiety, lower happiness, malaise, more than ever.
I think I'm a product of this. I have high anxiety, and I have a feeling that I'm just sensitive to my culture and my surroundings. And if this weren't sort of the millennial norm to be anxious and work a little too hard, like, I am so impressionable in that regard. And I don't mean to say that my anxiety isn't real, because I think it absolutely is. And it kind of bothers me on some deep level that I think I'm just a product of this culture. And then it kind of makes me frustrated at the culture. I don't mean to say that I have no control over myself or anything like that, but I absolutely believe if I were born in some oppressed part of the world, that like I would not have that anxiety. It's not just precisely innate, that it's like it's just me like responding to my circumstances and seeing that as the norm, and seeing who I'm around all the time. And because I think I'd just be worried about my next meal or protecting my family. Like, that's what I would be involved with. I'd be suffering and perhaps not happy, but
Right.
And certainly some people that get anxious and depressed and all of that do commit suicide, whereas the person who's suffering at the hands of an oppressor is not committing suicide, right? They're not. It has nothing to do with mental health. I mean, even though it does have, obviously being oppressed would make you miserable, but that misery is at least sensible. It's external. It's almost like this tangible. It's like, oh, it's this entity, it's this government, it's this system that I'm mad at, versus yourself and the vagueness of mental health issues. That's tough. So it's inescapable in a way. Whereas you can always have the hope of escape. If it's like the suppressor, you can like flee the escaper, or the oppressor, or defeat them, or something like that. Whereas if it's yourself, like, you're always with yourself, and that could be daunting.
It's probably also why celebrities, and child celebrities in particular, get messed up, right? Like, they have so many options. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of sway. They can kind of call the shots and direct their life exactly how they want, with no limitations. They can sleep
That
with
makes
anyone they
total sense.
want. They can have drugs or whatever.
They can have the drugs and have the sleep around. Yeah,
They can do whatever they want.
I don't know why they can watch the pornography movies. They just have too much. They have access, and they don't
Yeah.
have limitations.
Yeah,
And
no
they're
limitations.
too young. Yeah. And so they're not
Right.
going to be like creative and thoughtful. They're just going to hurt themselves.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well,
so that actually puts another spin as we wrap up this conversation. I know,
Mm-hmm.
but not only do limitations breed creativity, like it's also like a potential safety issue, like whether it's mental health to the average like free American now that suffers disproportionately with anxiety, or the celebrity kid that like got their way too much and is now a jerk and self-loathing and does drugs and is self-destructive. Like they didn't have proper limitations. So yeah, you've made the case, Bennett. Let's give up our freedoms.
No, I think so. My obviously we've been exploring the balance between freedom and limitation, and here's kind of the conclusion that I came to. Like, I do highly value freedom, but I recognize the benefit of limitation. And so what I think is that the ideal thing is that we should strive to have a society or a life, build a life for ourselves where we have the freedom to self-impose limitations of our choosing.
Responsibilities are a way of saying limitations of our choosing. Is that fair?
Right. I think that is fair.
Yeah.
And like you have to have the discipline to be able to say, okay, here are my bounds. Like here are the walls that I'm going to stay between, and within those boundaries, I'm going to act. And that allows you to be creative within those particular bounds. But it takes discipline, right? I think that's really hard for people with creative personality types because they want to break down those walls and they want to do whatever they want to do. Maybe they say, okay, I'm going to put these walls up, and then they get halfway and they think, well, if I just broke down this wall, I could do this. And then, they get carried away, and then they never finish whatever they're doing because they've broken down all of the walls.
It's the kid writing about the parrot that actually ends up wanting to write about the shopkeeper and says, can I just write about the shopkeeper instead? And I say, no, like the point is, for whatever reason, the animal has to be the protagonist, So, anyway, yeah, you're right. The creative person just wants to abandon that. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. That was it. That was my ultimate conclusion after kind of mulling this problem over because, I started going, oh no, freedom is a total good and should never be lessened.
You're like, with great freedom comes great responsibility. Oh. Like that's what happened.
Basically, Uncle Ben. It was basically an Uncle Ben moment.
But like in a really creative way.
Whoa, full circle.
Okay, that's enough. Bye.
The end. Creative ending. Dun, 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 dun.